Welcome back, it's Sylvia from Aussie Scrap Art with another process layout for you. And today I'm scrapping this photo of my little girl, and she's giving her granny some presents that she found on the ground. They were all sorts of little pebbles and stones and whatever, and she just thought that was wonderful. So I started by obviously picking my photos, and then I consulted the colour wheel, and I decided that I wanted to use some of the pinks, and then the opposite end of the spectrum of that was the teal colour. And I thought that that would work well with my photo, so I'm just going through my stash of papers and my stash of scraps and trying to find what works. So I pull out a whole lot of papers that I might use and a whole lot of scraps as well, because I always like using my scraps. Then I looked at the photo and I thought, no, I will trim this down because it's got a lot of negative space that I didn't really want seen, and I just wanted your eye to be drawn to that lovely little moment where she's sort of leaning over and Granny's leaning to, they're both leaning towards each other, and she's putting the pebbles in her hand. I thought that was a sweet little captured moment, and it's something that she did a lot at that age. So I'm still going through my papers. I do decide that I'm going to frame it with some white cardstock, so I'm just using my scraps here, and as always I want a perfect border all around, so I'm using one of my perfect layers ruler and using that to trim around. I decide on this paper, which is from the Bella Wedding range, and I can't decide if it's called Smitten or Charmed. Anyway, that's what I'm going to use, but then I want to give it another border of white to tie in with the mat that I made on the photo. So I just trimmed the Smitten paper a little bit and matted it onto that white piece of cardstock. I'm trying to work out my layers, which I guess in this layout was one of the hardest things for me, was to work out how I was going to layer the photo. I do get there. So while I'm thinking if I'm going to use this pink paper as another mat or another layer, I just decide to ink around my white edges using my what was I using? My Mementos Dewdrop ink in grey flannel. So I decided to use the reverse side of that paper in the end because it's a lovely pale pink colour. And I'm just cutting, well, once again, matching it using my Perfect Layers ruler. But I didn't want the mats to go all the way down, so I'm just sort of cutting it sort of, well, it's more than halfway, whatever you call that size. You can see it for yourself. So I glued that down using some double-sided tape, as you saw, and I used my, what's that punch called? Punch rounder, round punch, corner punch, whatever it's called, to just sort of round those corners. And I'm back to trying to work out what my layers are going to be. So once again, found some scraps and I decide, yes, I'm going to use that, trimming them down and, yeah, working along. And in this case, I decided that each layer was going to be inked with the grey flannel Mementos ink, just for a bit of uniformity to the layout, I guess. Then I'll think, oh, I want another layer. Oh my gosh, I don't normally use a lot of layers, but for some reason on this one, I went layer happy, which is a bit unusual for me. I do more mixed media, but you will see that there is absolutely no mixed media in this layout. It's very much a traditional scrapbooking layout, which is not something I do a lot of these days, but every so often it must speak to me because I let the photo talk to me and work out what I'm going to do with that. I sometimes plan, but it never goes according to plan, so I just go with the flow and what my brain wants to do at that any given time. So I found a little scrap of paper there, and then I pulled out the Cocoa Vanilla Love Always collection, which I'm still trying to work my way through. I've used all my papers, but I've just got bits and pieces of embellishments and ephemera and all that. So I used some of the words that were on the sticker sheet, and the words I used were so beautiful, and the other one is XOXOXO, and then I just put that on the corner there, inked all the edges, and that little flare button there with the little butterfly, that's also from the Cocoa Vanilla Love Always collection. Actually, all the ephemera and all the bits and pieces is from the Coco Manila Love Always collection. So there's that little sticker. I decided I am going to use that sticker there, and of course I had to ink all around it, and I'm just using a marker just to go all around all those little intricate edges and then just stick it down. Now for me, this layout came together really quickly. I normally can spend ages on a layout, and by ages I mean days. I think about it, walk away, come back, and this one, in about an hour, it was all done. So an hour is quick for me. So there you are. I'm just showing you that I'm using some Coco Vanilla Love Always, and these are the puffy stickers, and they're really great. So I'm just going to cut them out and see if I'm going to use I'm just trying to see what I think I'm going to use, and by cutting them out, it means I can move them around and work out where exactly I'm going to put them. So once I decide, yes, that's where I like it, then I will peel the little sticky bit out and stick it all down. And in this case, what I decided to do is none of that's working, so I have this tag template there. Well, it's not a template, it's a tag, but I didn't want to use it, it was too thick, so I just got some scrap white cardstock, traced around it, cut it out, and then I trimmed it down to a size that was more manageable. And I didn't like that stark white colour, so I'm just using some Distress Spray Stain in Antique Linen and giving it a bit more colour so that it sort of fits in more with the tones of the layout. Once again, inking it with that grey flannel, which it's becoming one of my favourite inks to ink because it's not exactly black, but it's a lovely sort of, it's not too grey, it's sort of in between a grey and a black, which I really, really like. So I'm just using my little hole punch to make a little tag there. And yes, I'm just going to use some twine that I had there, some pink twine, and put it all through, and it all comes together, and I quite like how that starts to look. Then I found some ribbon in my stash, and I thought, oh yes, that'll give it a nice little touch up there. It just needed something, that paper just wasn't doing it, so I wanted a bit of different texture, and I added that. So once again, with the inking around the edges, just to keep it all uniformed, I guess. And I think this completes the layout. Yes, it does. So here are some close-ups. Thank you all for watching. I hope you're all well, and till next time.